really shouldn't. Alright, so anyway, there's this guy, Inventive Harvest. Yeah. Yeah, I think his invention is, bullshit, shaped in the form of a Twinkie. Anyway, this is, he just, I was saying, okay, nice enough guy, but, yeah, I can just see it coming. It's just all this word games. So he doesn't like the word rationality. And he says, technically, this is what it really means, which is charming. But it's some sort of bullshit like, you did the best you can. There, that's being rational. So now we'll apply this word as if it doesn't matter how smart you are or how consistent your behavior is with, the rules of logic. So, yeah, go ahead, contradict yourself, and we'll call you rational. Yeah, I don't think so.
Traditional usage of the word rational, and it's very different than the popular usage of the word rational. This it gets conflated with reason quite a bit, like with what Inventive just said about, is there a rational way of deciding whether this guy's ethical or...
Yeah, whatever. I always use 3 or 4 of the same class of words, so I mean there really shouldn't be a problem about what I'm saying. So I usually use rational and reasonable and logical and intelligent. So I'll use 4 words to make sure it's understood that, yeah, I'm talking about some kind of standard of performance. That you have to hit the standard of being correct. That's the objective, is being correct. And you're not going to use rational for somebody consistently incorrect.
What he's talking about. So what we're talking about, it's nobody's fault that this is conflated. This is very conflated to a ridiculous point. So in the dictionary, if you look up rational, it'll say reasonable, just like people are using it. It's like, there must be a rational explanation. But if you look in the back of...
Yeah, whatever. Wouldn't we all like to just redefine a lot of words? I would like to take a lot of words out of the vocabulary because, yeah, they're useless piles of shit. But do you really think, I mean, you're going to take on a word like rational and you're going to screw with that one? Ugh, pathetic.
Econ textbooks and philosophy textbooks, we're going to get a completely different definition that isn't even mentioned in the dictionary. So in one traditional glossary by Manku.
Yeah, whatever. Traditional Manku. I'm supposed to get my vocabulary from there. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Says rationality is systematically and purposefully doing the best one can to achieve their objectives. Which is...
Yeah, doing the best one can to achieve their... What does that even mean? The best one can. Do we really have a choice? We're going to do what we're going to goddamn do through programming, and it's going to end up being the best we can at that moment, whether we like it or not. And that verbiage just doesn't mean anything. What is the best I can? Is there any, I mean, I really don't have a choice. I mean, unless you believe in free will.
I think completely different than reasonable.
Yeah, whatever. So, well, let's do a little more of this. It is funny.
It's self-interest. It doesn't have anything to do with reason.
So I like this
one. One from Andrew Schroeder's book. Rationality is the assumption that agents behave according to what they like, that is, their preferences, exhibit completeness, reflexivity, and transitivity.
Yeah, whatever all that is, right? Is transitivity? What the fuck is that? These are real concepts, but I love the word agents again. I just love this word agents. Like this means something. Agent. I really, it's supposed to mean something. I mean, how far back do we go with this agency thing? Like I said, it just doesn't mean anything. Any impulse can be called agency. It's just plainly idiotic. It's a stupid word. So you use the word that shouldn't exist in your read the definition of a word. So that's really going nowhere, right? Yeah, that goes nowhere. Let's move along.
I guess I'll talk about this more when we get to agents.
Yeah, good. I don't even want to get to agents, though.
The only point I'm trying to make here is, at this point, is that...
Let me jump a little bit ahead. Come on.
To themselves,
Here we go.
It could still be declared that this person has violated rationality or sensibility has committed a crime against their own philosophy. This whole Kantian thing is based on this premise that all we want is selfish things. Like we both want the same potato, and now we're going to come up with some strategy to come up with a fair way of deciding who gets potato or how much potato we get. And that's not what people battle over.
Anyway, so I skipped over the part where he made some comment about the single agent existing in a universe all by himself, and Hothloday saying he can do whatever he likes, and he clearly was implying that there's no ethical dilemma. And this guy's making some argument like that's not what he was implying. That's the clear implication. There's no ethical dilemma if I'm the only agent. And so, and I made my qualification that, well, if the only agent is crazy, there's still a dilemma. I mean, the interest of its body, the sentient part of its psychology, is still subject. See, isn't that the game, really? We're still subject to the conflict in our own brain. We're not one thing. I'm not just what my psychology, my conditioning says. I'm also what my intelligence understands. And those two certainly are in conflict with each other often.
Ethics are about.
So I want to refute that claim. It's not really a big deal, but it seems that there's a lot of inequality in this country. That a very small percentage of people own a large percentage of the wealth, and people equate that to an ethical problem. They think there's something wrong with that. So I want to disagree that
yeah, and that ethical problem certainly would be explained through all kinds of dynamics of how the money was earned, right? Whether it was earned would be the key point. But that's a separate point. What I'm saying is that there's a self-interest. Food is a immediate self-interest. It has nothing to do with ideology and all this other stuff. It's just basically a survival component. And so I'm saying that this discussion about self-interest is a little different than the discussion about what we are obligated to do because we live on a big giant planet full of other sentient beings. That's the subject of ethics. This stupid potato crap is a tiny portion of ethics.
A potato can't be an ethical topic.
So I mean, that's the annoying thing, right? Nowhere did I say anything about the potato not being an ethical situation. What I said was, this isn't reality for most ethical dilemmas. Most ethical dilemmas have nothing to do with some sort of simple self-interest. They have to do with complex multi-person or entity or agent interests.
Big conversation.
Not only what we personally want, but what we ideologically understand to be good and bad. And certainly.
So again, ideologically understand to be good and bad. So that's just to understand that for the next little bit of crap.
Sensible people would also include the future in those calculations. As much as I hate human beings and have absolute contempt for them, I know that most human beings, if I offer them $50 to roll barrels of dioxin into the Great Lakes, they'll say, no, thank you, I really don't want that on my conscience. They'll realize that the crime...
Right. So I probably shouldn't have said the on their conscience thing. So, and we should have just stuck with they will realize. Yeah.
Against the future is too great for their personal gain. And they'll...
So they're saying, I don't want that on my conscience, because having that on my conscience would, keep me from sleeping at night. I wouldn't feel good about it.
Right. So, see, they want to again turn into a subjective situation. Look, the concession that will be made that there's absolutely no possible way for your intelligence to communicate to your psychology, but to associate things with positive and negative feelings. You think of rainbows, you think of whatever, gold, pots of gold. You will have positive feelings. You think about somebody dying or suffering, or you'll have negative feelings. The feelings are an inevitable part of it, but it's not the feelings that make you, that is why you were aware of the negative. You're aware of the negative because you understand the implications of it. So you can have a picture of a Nazi in full uniform. Now, simply just based on the uniform, you wouldn't say, oh, I'm reacting to the uniform. No, you would understand that you're reacting to the context, what the uniform represents to you as something you understand, and that your mind reacts to the understanding and sends the message to the ape, wow, this is bad stuff. I mean, the fact that we have a feeling, it is not the feeling we are avoiding. When somebody doesn't roll the dioxin into the Great Lakes, it's not because they can't live with the feeling. Okay, it's not that the feeling is what they don't want. Their brain is saying it is not acceptable, okay, to do it. And it's sending the message that this will make you feel bad and maybe even jump off a cliff, or maybe, you know, just because it's the message is being sent in the only way the intellect can communicate with this dumb ape that we are, our psychology. It has to use psychological emotions, or we wouldn't pay any attention. That's why we're sentient. That's why we feel. It's because we wouldn't pay any attention, okay, if it didn't have us by the short hairs. Is that a way to say it? If it didn't have us by something that meant something, a feeling, we wouldn't be motivatable. We would just say, who cares?
Myself. Therefore, the desire to have a clean conscience is a self.
Yeah, well, whatever. That's not what's being desired. So again, that's just insulting it. Okay, that's just saying that. Oh yeah, okay. So if I empathize with the Jews suffering in the Holocaust, you're going to turn into some sort of it's just sympathy. No, it's an understanding. Okay, I intellectually understand it, and that's the understanding that creates the emotion. Yes, it comes out as sympathy, or it comes out as remorse, or it comes out as disgust. But clearly it required the intellectual connections, and you're not giving them any credit. And that's just a cheap maneuver. It's not a subjective reaction, and it's not a subjective personal interest. It's not a personal interest not to roll dioxin into the Great Lakes because it will only kill the people in the future. It's not a personal interest. And the only thing that makes it your interest is your intellectual understanding that it's bad. You know, I mean, it's not that doing bad will make you feel bad is not the reason why you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it because you know it's bad. The side effect that doing bad will make you feel bad is just a side effect.
Fish motivation.
Very irritating.
From rejecting the $50. There's no personal interest. They'll just know that, yes, that's just going to cause a whole bunch of unnecessary harm that I'm smart enough to figure out that would be bad.
Along, given the presence of another
Playing a lot of the video.
Okay, so, I mean, one of my points here is the men have said all this kind of stuff, and now Hythloid is just getting into the part of adding a second agent or being or whatever you want to call it into the model. He hasn't even brought up Kantian ethics yet. And so Inventive is kind of bashing the Kantian ethics before it's even really been brought up.
Oh, whatever. I mean, don't you think I've seen these videos and seen a ton of them before this one? I mean, there's a context here, buddy. I mean, I've been talking to this asshole for a couple of years. You don't think I know what's coming? I could just read the title and I could tell what was coming. Fuck.
there is and that is agent with agents, yeah, suppose agents.
Well, again, this whole notion of agency is just, what the fuck? It's a meaningless piece of term.
Okay, so terms have the meanings that we give them through agreement, through.
Yeah, whatever. No, what they should have is correlation to something real in the world, some real relationship that really exists, or some real phenomenon. So if there's no such thing as spontaneous, then we probably shouldn't have a word called spontaneous. And since there's no rational, reasonable, confined, limited definition of something called an agent, nothing that I'm going to agree with. What agent means what? Retarded human's an agent, smart mouse isn't. Retarded human's an agent, smart gorilla isn't. What the fuck? It's a stupid word.
Usage. Agents are sometimes people and sometimes just mathematical representations of people, but it's usually just a mathematical representation of people.
Why would I bother with mathematical representations of people? And why would I have a discussion about the interest of a mathematical representation? Yeah, I just don't see any point in that. I mean, like I said, especially in this conversation, like I said, there's no way that when Hafliday said agent, he was referring to a mathematical correlate to a statistical grouping. That wasn't what he was talking about.
But a utility function is an agent. It's just, if you say utility that someone gets from potatoes, is equal to some function of the quantity of potatoes they have. That's an agent. It might not necessarily represent a real person. It's just a mathematical way of.
I don't know what you call what. The someone is an agent, or the statistical potato is an agent, or the number of potatoes is an agent. That didn't make a hell of a lot of sense. Sorry, I mean, this just sounds like a bunch of fucking convoluted, silly, whatever, sophistry, is that what they call it? It's just fucking word masturbation.
Of simplifying things. One way to think about agents is the ghosts in the Pac-Man game. Now they're going to gain utility by eating Pac-Man, but they can't just eat Pac-Man directly. They have to go some direction in order to get there. So they can go left, right, up, or down, and depending on the location of Pac-Man and his velocity and direction, some choices will be better than others. So their utility from going right is dependent on where Pac-Man is. Now, the ghosts in the Pac-Man game are not people.
This is an agent.
They're just agents.
Okay, whatever. So agent C is what? Being an agent? So being, again, so we're back to nothing. It's a stupid word to use in a conversation about what human beings are. Human beings are not agents.
But people can also be agents because they act in their own self-interest as well, often. Not all the time, but quite often they do. So people can be agents, but.
Well, whatever. I mean, that is just so irrelevant to a conversation, in my opinion, about ethics, because your self-interest is bullshit, okay? It really is. There's absolutely, I've said it, what exactly is the rational reason why my brain should think this body's welfare is worth more than any other human's welfare? What exactly should be obvious and apparent to me why this consciousness needs protection and all those other consciousness need somehow less protection? How could that be rationally or logically or intelligently defended as anything other than a stupid bigotry? An ignorant bigotry. Being a dumb fucker. How can it be described as anything else?
But usually we're referring to some mathematical representation of what a person might do.
Well, again, so that's what you're saying. You're saying that this is how this word is usually used. Well, what I'm saying is no, I'm finding people using this word agency all over the place, like humans have some special quality called agency. So, and again, what does agency in the term agency have? How does that equate at all to your Pac-Man description of a agent that doesn't really have any agency?
Models are ways of describing reality. So when I talk, reality doesn't come out my mouth. Just a description of reality comes out my mouth. Now that description might not be very good. It might not comport to reality very well at all.
And it somehow doesn't matter because you're still going to be called rational even though it doesn't comport with reality because it's the best you can do. Like I said, that standard is just not reasonable.
Might comport to some part of reality, or it might be universal truth. But it's not reality itself. Models are just simplifications we use to try and get at fun.
Yes, words are a model. They're a description of properties and categories that these are things, these are qualities things have. Things have the quality of being in a category. If there was two of me, we would have two-ness, and now we could fit in the category two. Yes, I got that.
Elements of the problems that we're trying to address. It's a model of reality is not reality itself. It operates under assumptions.
So again, let's remember, often they use the word in the sense of agency, but whatever.
What, desire? So, I mean, you gotta go all the way down to insects, and you can probably find some of that. This agency thing. So this doesn't mean anything. What, you have ambitions, desires, needs, wants. This agency word means nothing. It's just not a reasonable or practical philosophical word. You have special agency. What does that mean? If there's a human being who has the intelligence, the actual intelligence of a mouse, that is, he's very good at doing mazes, and he can learn things, and he can lick your feet, and he can do all kinds of funny little things, but he's an idiot. Does he have agency? Does he have the sets of desires and wants some cheese and likes to get petted behind his ears? Oh, come on. This is so...
Is the issue of
The issue is competence, and that's all there is.
So I thought it was just like there's an issue. Now I don't know what either of those guys are going to say next. Inventive jumps in and says the issue is competence. I don't know. It seems like he's just not listening, right? He doesn't take time to let the sentence finish. So he's gonna.
Yeah, right. Whatever. I mean, why don't you tell me then how I didn't respond to what he was saying and say something completely connected to what he said? No, you're not going to do any of that. I mean, this is just such a bullshit rag. Yeah, what I'm saying is it's back to the Yoda thing, okay? There is no try. There's do or do not do, okay? And the fact of the matter is that in these ethical things, if you're going to interact with somebody, it's the competence, it's the level of the quality of your interaction. That's all there is. There isn't anything else. Either you interacted in a quality manner that rose all the boats, so to speak, or you sank them all. It's do or do not do. It's make it better or make it worse. Shit.
Say the issue is something else before the proposition's even been made. It's just so strange to me.
Well, whatever.
There's no other issues. So he's going to go into a lot of analogies. He's going to use Star Trek analogies that, like, should the Vulcans have twice as much votes or something if they were going to be voted? I'd say, of course they should. Because they've earned it, right? They can out-calculate.
Good. So in a previous video, this guy had actually implied that Holiday was for Vulcans having extra votes, when Holiday was obviously saying no, they're not entitled to extra votes simply because they're Vulcan. That's what he said. And this guy didn't even get that part right. So let's see what he does with it here again, now that it's come up again. Let's see what kind of mess he makes of it.
They have knowledge base you, they have more information, they understand more about any subject there is, they know more about it than any of you toads. So if they're going to come up with a strategy to win the game, who's more likely to win the game? Well, the fact is Spock as the quarterback. Yeah, he's more likely to be the guy who's going to win the game for you. So yeah, he's more likely to have more votes for a quarterback. I just, it's just logical that if we had a truly rational society that respected reason, respected logic, and respected knowledge, that we would reward people who possess these things and say, yes, you will be rewarded with more authority and more responsibility because you're more intelligent.
Let's see what he has to say to that, right? Because that's just too simple. I mean, I know it's just as a pragmatic matter, people will not admit they're dumb. So, yeah, we're never going to be able to do this. But it's just a fact. Stupid people pollute decisions with shit. That's what they do. They add shit to everything. Stupid people just make things shitty.
That would be more responsible.
The Spock thing comes in much later in this video. Again, I still don't know what Holiday is talking about here. It's not the Spock thing, because the Spock thing comes in way much.
Yeah, what Inventive is talking about here. Yeah, I watched his video, and I knew I wasn't going to have enough time to do his whole fucking video, so I was just pointing out that he's going to use this metaphor, and I just want to make sure I make this point that I think it's just ludicrous to sit there and tell us that the right ethical thing to do is give dumbasses the same influence as we give smartasses. I think that's really dumb. I think it's ethically irresponsible to... that's like having affirmative action at the nuclear power plant. Oh fuck, we don't need a physics degree. Yeah, go ahead. But what? You once hit a nail right on the head with your hammer? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and run the nuclear power plant. No, I don't think so.
Later, Holiday said the issue is, I don't know.
Stability, in my opinion, and more accountability.
Well, you don't know. I'm just saying because you got it wrong. That's right. Because Holiday was basically saying it's not Spock is not more qualified. That somehow it's just about his name Spock, and that somehow we shouldn't give him extra votes just because his name is Spock, and we just ignore that Vulcan means highly educated. I mean, it was just drivel.
It's not like they're going to profit from the experience, but
here we go.
They should have a louder voice than some idiot who's chewed gum his whole life and
should have jumped over this part. Oh, I like that part. That was funny.
So the issue is infringing on other people's. That's the topic of the Is-Art-Goth that we're discussing. The is does other people exist? How ought we ought to treat them? That's the issue here.
And this whole conversation just really doesn't have much to do with most of the stuff discussed in an ethical context. Greenhouse gases, all this stuff involves, many generations perhaps into the future. This stuff isn't personal interest stuff. This stuff is practical, what's in the best interest of the entire game. Again, the game is the game. He wants to turn it into some sort of, what do the individuals do to play this game to their advantage? There is no playing to your advantage. All there is in the end is the game. We have to, it is, I'll make the argument, it's fundamentally irrational for you not to think of yourself as a member of a colony, like an ant. And that it's your job to do whatever in the best interest of the most ants possible. Because all the ants are essentially the same. We're all paper bag ants. We're all pawns. We're all treats the conscious, but I'm just saying we can generally say that although our intelligence is
I already watched this video.
generally speaking, our capacity
I don't, it's not,
fundamentally the same.
not a serious critique, but I mean, I don't really see the point of doing this respond in play thing if you're going to just play the other guy's video. I mean, I don't get that. Because I already saw me do the video. I did the video. I was there.
And that and even if it isn't, it's practically impossible to make distinctions about who's more sensitive or less sensitive, and therefore more equipped or less equipped to endure a particular unpleasantness. That's just unpractical. So even if it's not the same, it's impractical to try to make distinctions. So they're all black pawns. And it's just ludicrous to have a conversation about ethics, playing the game to win, and have a conversation.
So again, this is just this. I'm just making more argument, right? That just backs up what I was saying before. Okay, is that I don't think you can make a rational, logical, reasonable statement defending any notion of real self-interest being anything, meaning anything, having any meaning whatsoever, rationally. Like I said, it's just a bigotry. You're just bigoted because your personal consciousness is experiencing it, but you can't rationally say it's better for you. It's better for the piano to fall on him than it is me, if everything else is the same. There's no way you could rationally make that argument. You'd have to have some other qualification, some other statement demonstrating how you're better than they are. And that, I'm just saying, in the situation where that doesn't exist, there's no excuse for this nonsense, this conversation in the big picture, where we're not talking about individual differences and individual capacities, that there's any room for this notion of a self-interest. Your brain is a thinking machine. It's either thinking about the truth, which is, yeah, all the pawns are the same. They're all interested. They all have a welfare. They all feel. It doesn't matter who has the fucking broken leg. That's just the truth. I mean, again, I'll say it again. The suffering is the enemy. That's the enemy. Wherever it is, that's the enemy. It's a sensation that is the enemy.
About how the pawns should be looking at each other, trying to figure out how to have advantage over each other. If you're doing something besides playing for the team, you're an idiot. You're going to likely be unproductive in your existence. If you take the $50 to dump the dioxin in the Great Lakes, you're not a good guy. You're a failure. A colossal failure at living. Period. You ethically failed.
So it is an issue. Which is the respect of others.
So remember, Holiday is also kind of slow in how he makes videos, so it really is advisable to try to do a bigger picture kind of video response than to sit there and just wait for it.
Well, again, it's hardly an issue in the sense of talking about manners. It's not really talking about ethics.
So did Holiday talk about manners? I mean, it just blows my mind.
Yeah, he did. He talked about the interactions between people and their personal exchanges with each other. Okay? Like having hurt feelings or something, or some other interaction. So this is, in my opinion, especially in the circumstance we're existing in, where we're at peak oil and peak economics and peak greenhouse. Yeah, it seems kind of ludicrous to have a conversation like that. That's right. Yeah, I think it makes it insults the concept of ethics to worry about stub. It's like calling stub toe suffering. It's like that game played.
It's like a subclass of the conversation, and it's a subclass in a little paperback book. It's just really not the substance or
more time. I'm already 20 minutes in this video. But it gets fixed pretty quickly. It's not a big deal.
So it's game theory.
Okay, so he's saying again, like this is some sort of game we personally win. I could personally.
No, he just said game theory. He didn't say this is a game. He's just talking about game theory. Game theory is a model of reality. It's not reality.
Yeah, well, you're not getting my point, okay? The point of game theory is this idea of us against them, and coming up with some solution where, you know, we strategize in some cohabitation manner, in some what's the word I'm looking for? Not commensurate, but you know, in some mutually beneficial way, because we reason out that okay, there's a slight probability that I could win it all, but if I just go for the 50% bag, okay, it's, you know, blah blah blah. And you know, yeah, though again, I already described this as being not applicable to most situations or many situations in which ethics are involved, because it's not going to be about some compromise. Compromise isn't going to be victory.
Itself, it's just a model, and it might apply to some games. Apply to some parts of reality. Some games don't really apply to reality very much at all.
Well, I'm just saying, he said it was a fact, and I'm just saying I don't see how it has any real relevant fact, like it means something in a conversation about ethics. I just don't see, the ethics are always going to rise above some, well, what do we pragmatically do to resolve the situation outside of figuring out who's actually right and wrong. So let's not bother figuring out who's actually right. No, let's come up with some stupid system to say, let's bastardize the right into something less than right. And I'm saying, from my perspective, that's losing.
None of them are universal, as far as I know. It's just specific instances. We'll get into it.
We win by conquering somebody. I could personally win by raping a woman. I could personally win by owning a slave. But this is somehow, we don't have to account.
Raping women and owning slave, there's no game theory games I know of that are about either of those things.
Exactly. So what are we bothering for? Aren't the big subjects in the world is somebody has the power and somebody doesn't have the power? Aren't these the real equations? So what good is this game theory crap when the power isn't proportional, when one side doesn't have the bomb underneath the other side's ass? What's the point of talking about ethics in situations where, you know, it's just some sort of even power struggle? Because that's not the reality. And the reality of ethics is not using force or using power or using self-interest. That the idea, in my opinion, of ethics is to sit there and figure out an intellectual, a sensible understanding of obligation and the reason why it should be satisfied.
For the harm I cause the other sentient being. It's some sort of competition between me and the other sentient beings, which, in my opinion, doesn't recognize value at all, doesn't account for the substance of value on Earth, which is not your own, and is just ludicrous.
A mathematical way, logically true law of reasoning.
Well, it's again, it's not practical in any real-world circumstance. It's not.
He didn't say it was practical. He said it was mathematically valid.
Well, again, so it's a discussion of impractical ethics. So you're not being a very good defender of Hothliday's crap if you're going to sit there. He's making videos about impractical ethics. Let's talk about impractical, irrelevant ethics. Oh, okay, that'll be fun. No, it's a waste of time. This is, been a bit tedious. I mean, watching my own videos okay, but
Energy or any good on a lifeboat, okay, where you have 10 days of food and you have to, for two people and 20 days for one person, and the prospect of land is 15 days away. How's game theory going to help you there? It's not going to help you any. There's some times where the compromise will fail. And so, yes, the only way to go is for the best man to win. And if the best man knows he's the best man, he has to take decisive action and wipe out the less best man. He has to kill the compromise that will destroy doing it right. This is like a...
So this is game theory. This one's called The Prisoner's Dilemma, and it's a box with numbers on it. It really has nothing to do with people killing other people. Now, you could apply this model to a real situation where people are killing each other, and that might be valid, that might be invalid, but this model is just numbers on a grid.
Yes, and so it's irrelevant whether there's a compromise, right? Because it's not going to matter. So you can afford to have a compromise. I mean, I'm a big fan of fail-safe, right? But in certain circumstances, you can't afford fail-safe. So you have to compromise fail-safe because it can't be afforded. This just doesn't have anything. This simple math will not give you the right answers to complex problems. It just won't.
Recipe. If some guy knows how to make it right, why would you let people spit in the cake batter? Why would you let any idiot show up and throw any kind of fish in your cake batter? It's just going to dilute the right. So, and the test for right or wrong is going to be some sort of intellectual argument where you're going to have to compile evidence and put them on two sides and say this is the evidence for this theory, this is the evidence for this theory, and make the argument. But frankly, I'm just saying that's where the argument is. The argument's going to have to be on this higher level about the actual value. You can't come up with some silly probabilistic game theory that's going to solve the problem of deciding who's right and who's wrong, because compromise is not winning.
Again, this has nothing to do with right and wrong. This one's The Prisoner's Dilemma. It's the most famous of the games. I'm going to do this. That sucks too.
Yes.
So...
Yeah, it's look obvious. Okay, yes, 3-3. That's what you're going to end up with, right? So you either win it all or you lose it all. And then you have the compromises that aren't worth anything. Yeah, fine. Whatever. I don't know if this is worth the trouble.
Okay. The basic idea of the scenario is that two people are in prison. They're separated so they can't talk to each other and make out an agreement. And the cops are trying to get each one to rat the other one out. So if they don't rat the other one out, it's called cooperative behavior. If they do rat the other person out, it's called defective behavior. So Agent A can cooperate or defect, and Agent B can cooperate or defect. And the payout matrix is a number of points that they get for depending on what each one does. Now we're going.
Yeah, we already know how this works out in real life, right? I mean, they're going to grant you immunity to testify from in court against the other guy. Yeah, okay, I won't take the immunity. Yeah, sure you won't, liar.
Now, find what's called a Nash equilibrium, and in order to find the Nash equilibrium, both players have to be what we're going to consider rational. Is they're going to try and go for the biggest number, but not just the biggest number on the paper, but the biggest number given the fact that the other person is also going after the biggest number. I'm jumping ahead a little bit because I'm getting bored. So
Getting bored making his own argument. That's surprising.
Let's say we'll start here where they both cooperate. It's not a bad thing because they'll each get 3 points for if they both cooperate.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'm not going to bother with this. Fine, whatever. I don't really care. If you think this is applicable to the 9 million real ethical dilemmas that human beings face in their existence, whether to eat animals, whether to project somebody into the future, all these ethical questions, you're going to answer it with this crap. I don't think you're going to. I don't think you're going to come close to doing it. Because most of these interactions don't have anything to do, again, with some sort of equalized power. There's the future is powerless. They can do nothing to us. They can't hurt us in any way whatsoever. They can't throw a rock. They can't do a goddamn thing except they can't do a goddamn thing. There is just no except, right? They can't do anything to make us pay for how we misdealed the cards to them. How we played the dilemma. So what's the point of this conversation? And I'm just saying, and the biggest part of our ethical dilemma as individuals, as groups of individuals, as a society, as a human race, the future's the game. Because the present is, whoops, there it went. It's gone already. And the past, we can't throw rocks at them either. We can't get to the past, all right? And and you can't even recognize the present. It's so fleeting. So all there is that big, giant, potentially giant future, and they have no way to dilemma us into responsible behavior except through an understanding, except through knowledge and intelligence that says if you act contrary to this thought theme, okay, you will compromise the integrity of your intelligence. And your brain's not going to like that. It's going to create dissidence. But that's just a byproduct. The real dilemma is you will have soiled, broken, dysfunctioned something that was functioning. It functioned to tell you no. If you don't pay attention to the no, you're broken. Yeah, that's enough. So anyway, enough of this. I'll be back. Maybe I'll watch the rest of this and paraphrase it later or something, but whatever. I can just see this guy's not going to go anywhere good. You know, word games and bullshit.